Hi, this is John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Hypothetically Speaking. In this episode, I'm pleased to be joined by an old friend of mine, Shepard Ambellas. Shepard, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on, John. How have you been lately, man? We haven't done a show in a little bit.
No, we certainly haven't done one on camera. I guess I did a couple shows with you and Bethany on your radio show.
Yeah.
But I guess you just started doing a new series on camera, and then something happened, and so I wanted to sync up with you and see sort of, what's the latest going on. You've been persecuted.
I got streams back up. We're doing video now. We decided to go out on a bunch of different platforms and everything, and we're just gonna persevere through everything. Over the past 6 months, they've shut down 2 of my bank accounts. Last year, they shut down a PayPal.
Let's go back a little bit. Let's hold on and tell everybody sort of the backstory. So people who are watching and don't know that you and I have been working together for quite a few years now, may not know that we connected years ago over the Las Vegas shooting. And that prior to that, you were a hero of mine.
Yeah, we started working together a little bit on the Las Vegas shooting investigation because you were doing some great work and we were both doing it full time. So,
well, you were doing it full time.
Sharing information.
You were doing it full time. So back then, you had a website called intellihub.com. And intellihub.com was, for many people, the go-to place for alternative news. Like if you wanted to know sort of the other side of the story, or maybe like a counter narrative that people were looking at, you'd always go to IntelliHub, and IntelliHub would be where you would find out, so there is another side to this story. And I was doing that, I forget when you launched it originally, but I had been going to IntelliHub as a viewer for years.
Yeah, and then, I think 2009.
Yeah,
I started the website, and then it progressed from there. We, but like in 2012, I went to the Bilderberg meeting in Chantilly, Virginia, with Alex Jones and all them.
Yeah.
And it was a big thing, man. We made world press and exposed the Bilderberg group. I made Drudge Report. I did probably like 30 mainstream interviews on different outlets and whatnot. Made the London Guardian. We just drove through the Westfields Marriott. We made the loop right by the hotel entrance. Actually went onto the property.
The globalists are incredibly dangerous. The status quo means giving into eugenics, death, and world government.
All right, we're at the Bilderberg conference, and the police are getting kind of weird.
Did I just see that?
Shared our pictures with some top journalists, stuff like that. And the thing is, though, when I was there, I got all these pictures of all the elite, and I was taking pictures within a foot or 6 inches of their car window. And no reporter was doing that or even coming close to being able to do that. And they didn't like that very much because essentially I was getting within their security bubble. And they were like, who is this guy? And ever since then, they started targeting me.
You want to be out here?
Yeah.
You want to be out here?
Yeah.
You want to go be out here? Because I can get you taken out of here.
Who are you?
I can get you taken out of here if
Who
you want
are
to.
you?
So get on back on over there.
Don't
Go.
touch me.
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
What's your name?
Go.
What's your name?
Get the fuck away. That's who I am.
The reason that operative, I call him an operative, wanted us to leave is because we were streaming live. We were the only reporters streaming live for IntelliHub.com and the Jason Goodman Crowdsource the Truth channel on YouTube. And it was a live report.
They shot first.
Yeah, right. What do you make of all this? Do you think this is going to last longer, or are they like?
And I think it's gonna be a long time because, for one, y'all see those weak ass charges.
Yeah.
He ain't even say nothing about Breonna Taylor. Didn't even mention her name.
Yeah.
How y'all doing? I didn't
How's it
really
going?
mean it, but yeah.
She meant it.
I didn't.
And you're very.
Here's the National Guard. Are you National Guard? Yeah.
One thing is for sure, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, these groups are working in conjunction not only with people like George Soros, possibly factions of the older Obama administration, and possibly even CIA and FBI factions, but we found out they are likely working with law enforcement. We witnessed a powwow, if you will, between Black Lives Matter and police, and the police totally disbanded themselves after this powwow. They made some sort of deal. They came to a pact. I don't know what's going on here, but it stinks and it's not right. Something's going on, and that's another reason why we set out to do this investigation.
There were some people that look kind of like protesters. I heard they're gathering at this church, but we've been on such a run with this documentary and traveling. Like, for instance, we traveled. Well, we were doing your film shoot for the documentary.
Well, I don't doubt it. I remember the first time you published something on IntelliHub that had been one of my videos, one of the videos that I worked on. And then I remember that you had a huge break at IntelliHub that I followed up on, and it turned into another huge development in the Vegas shooting.
Go ahead, Todd.
And next thing you know, I guess you and I were connecting over a Skype call. This was before we even had Zoom. There was no Zoom back then. We only had Skype.
Right.
And I was on a beach. In fact, I was in a cove, very much like where your where your background looks right now. I was sitting in a cove in Thailand, and you and I talked for the first time. And for me, that was like, I can't believe I'm talking to Shepard Ambellas. This was huge. And I was so grateful that you had been publishing my work on IntelliHub and sharing my videos. And I think that's how I got my early exposure. And it's probably, how Jason Goodman found me also. Jason ended up watching a video that I did about Frank Muth, who was the head of the OPM SANG, the
Oh,
office,
okay, right.
the Office of Program Management, which is where we train these guys for money. And when Jason saw that video, he was like, man, this guy sure has researched a lot of background here. And that's how we got connected for the first time. So
yeah, man, and you've came a long ways. It's cool watching everyone get involved and getting the truth out and whatnot. But man, it's crazy how much they've suppressed everything. Even the Las Vegas shooting has been suppressed quite a bit.
no, it's not just that. You were in this industry, before the Vegas shooting, so you were aware. When I got into this, I was super naive, man. Super naive. And I didn't know that there were like people that would counter your work with nonsense just to discredit you. I didn't realize that there were actually people that did that until I got into this. And that was stunning to me. Real misinformation agents, if you will. And I was like, this is wild.
Yeah, it gets deep, dude. Like I've had physical interactions with operatives, like all sorts of stuff over the years happen.
I've tried to avoid that. So, the public appearances and everything. I've only been out in public with the camera with Jason, I guess, twice in Las Vegas. Both times at night, or at dusk.
There were shots fired at Bellagio and that glass was broken. All that was downplayed. All that video was swept under the rug because as soon as you have that type of evidence, it breaks the narrative.
And, I'm very wary when we're doing it. So you're very recognizable too.
Yeah.
So you stick out a bit. So it's easy to pick you out of a crowd.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Especially in Beijing. Kind of easy to find you. So we started working together on this Vegas shooting thing. We were pretty much the only two journalists that were talking anything about helicopters. No one else was mentioning the helicopters, I think, except for you and me. And of course, Jason Goodman, who I do the show with. But other than that, no one of any kind of significant publishing, no one that had a channel with thousands of subscribers or anything, was publishing anything about helicopters.
We spoke to a bunch of eyewitnesses who said that they believe that they were being fired at by helicopters.
That's what I thought.
You thought
helicopters?
That? Yeah.
What made you think?
Hang on.
No, she can't handle it. She
can't handle it. Okay.
She's very
Too emotional.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was.
all right.
That's what I called my husband. I told him.
Helicopters. So there's a bunch of eyewitnesses that say they're shooting at us from the helicopters.
Now, I could see how there could be some cognitive dissonance, regarding that. But all in all, that's a full-on disinformation operation and cover-up.
When you and I first started, we're looking at the flight radar and we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. This doesn't look like a normal night. But then when we see the body camera footage and we see the helicopters between the Delano and the Mandalay, and it's like, well, bing, 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 and you see all that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what the hell do you think that is? Those aren't jets turning back around after takeoff. That's not what that is. They don't do that.
Excuse me.
Like if you you leave your kid behind, they don't turn the jet around. They don't do that.
It got real telling to me when we started time stamping the videos and the air traffic videos, and then also taking a vantage point. Like if you could imagine standing inside the venue of the Route 91 where the shooting was happening, and you're looking toward the Delano and the Mandalay Bay, and there's that gap in between them. You can go ahead and go in like Google Earth and get that little man and place it in there. can see your field of view, but you can also do a topographical analysis on this. You could get a top view map. You could pull up the Harvest Festival grounds, put you a spot in there where you want to view it from, and then draw a straight line out, protruding out all the way through Vegas from one edge of the Delano to the other edge of the Mandalay Bay, like a piece of pizza or whatever, right? Like a triangle out into the airfield. And then once you know where all air traffic is in that zone at what time, you can easily identify other aircraft that are not supposed to be there with their transponders off, flying below buildings and lurking around, right?
Exactly. I mean, this airspace is so close to the airport that the aircraft have to have their transponders on. We know, we see the Mavericks, we see the Sundance, and then we see a whole bunch of helicopters flying the wrong way with no transponders on. I mean, that's clearly not a tour helicopter. It's clearly not the police. HBO wasn't filming a documentary that night. So, and by the way, there's no gunfire coming from 32-135 because we don't see the window broken.
People like that might have seen it, you know, that were in the vicinity could have just thought it was a movie shoot or something.
Even. Yeah. That's when I did an interview a week or so ago with the dog walking guy again, and I said to him, did you think they were filming like a Bourne Identity or something like that? Because they did film that there. And he said there were so many police cars, though. He said it's like there's no way that any production company, even, you know, Jerry Bruckheimer, or Michael Bay, he's like, they were coming from everywhere. They were coming from Henderson. They were coming, you know, from every direction. And he was like, no, there was no. He's like, this isn't a movie. I've seen them. I saw the he said I saw them make Rush Hour, and I saw Chris Tucker. He's like, no, this was no movie. And when I think when he saw the helicopters and he saw the jet, he saw a jet take off and then bank hard and turn hard. And he was like, what the hell was that?
Popped up from everywhere and just started heading towards the strip and towards the area. And I thought there's a plane crash. And then I saw those helicopters. I was just confused. Like, what is going on? Something's just, you know, I've never seen this before. So obviously something was up. And we don't live in a war zone. So I don't have, it's just like, I saw that. I saw the muzzle blast coming off, but my mind just wouldn't let me think, no, this can't be, right? This just, we're not in Aleppo or, you know, this is not a war zone.
Have you ever seen them film anything? Like the Bourne Identity was shot out there. Have you ever
seen? I've seen things filmed before. One time I was driving down the strip in front of
He said he's there all the time. Same place, all the time. Same night, same spot, every night. Then all of a sudden he sees this and he doesn't know there's a shooting going on. So he's just watching this going, what the hell is going on in the sky? And he sees one of the planes makes this huge banking turn. And then he sees these helicopters over by the Mandalay. And he said, next thing you know, it looks like there's balls of fire coming out of the sides of the helicopter. And he said, well, what the hell is this? So that was the dog walking guy. So you and I connected on all that with the Vegas shooting and the helicopters and everything. And then you went on Alex Jones, I guess, and this was probably before we connected. You went on Alex. Yeah, this was before we connected. You went on Alex's show like Halloween weekend. I guess it was like October 28th or 29th or something like that.
Maybe even Halloween.
Yeah, it might have been the 30th or so. And you were on the show with Alex, and a guy called in who was like a contractor from JSOC, a guy named Zach. And he said to you that there was a team from ETS, a Saudi military contractor like a Blackwater. So like a Saudi version of Blackwater, a company called ETS was on the ground in Las Vegas.
Right.
And that was it. That was the clue.
So yeah, this ETS risk management company is a PMC that's real shady, and they don't work now within the government because who's in the White House, but they did work during Libya with the Clintons. If I got some guys down here in the forensic accounting. If you look into the contract,
so let's start over. Zach's recently gotten out of the military and the whole intelligence area. We'll leave it at that. Called him with a lot of good info in the past 6 months. So just start back over because this is really important.
Right. So the timeline's pretty unprecedented, let alone with, so you get the $42 million worth of put options done by the George Soros Fund Management Group. And also you have a contract being fulfilled by ETS Risk Management. But this contract was not fulfilled by DOD. Okay, so this is sort of this is where it gets tricky, but they were working, and there are PMCs that work kind of in vacuums in Libya, in Syria, and they do certain drills stateside as well. But they were there that weekend. Everybody knows they were there that weekend.
Are you talking about like those CIA paramilitary teams?
So this is a private company that is actually ran, and you could pull them up, ETS, but they are ran out of Saudi Arabia. But they did work during 2013 in Libya, and that's fiasco. So when you're saying, and people bat their eyes saying that this is Islamic, this is Islamic, not in the sense that it's done by Islamic groups, but in a way, ISIS itself was a creation of these private military groups. And if you want to, back in the day, they terms like Al-Qaeda, and this is real. So you have these private military companies that are backed and ran by the deep state, creating this chaos around the world. And with full validation, 100% ETS risk management was on the ground in Vegas that night. And this gentleman who you have on, who's talking about these choppers being in the area, he's spot on. And the issue, the next thing I got to bring up is the forensic accounting that's going to be brought up, because there's individuals that are aware of this. In today's day and age, when you have these transfers and you're transferring large sums of money, people in the intelligence agencies who are either in or out are not going to stay quiet. And this is big.
That I needed. That was the tip. And I took that from the show you were doing. In fact, I was watching you guys live, or as live as Alex puts them on the air. So as soon as Alex put the show out, I was watching you guys. And when I heard this guy say that, I was like, oh my God. And that's when I started looking into the Saudis. By the time we got to November 5th, it was less than a week later. November 5th.
There was that Saudi deal going on where they were shooting helicopters out of the sky.
Yeah, Mansour bin Mukran. Yeah, Mansour bin Mukran gets shot out of the sky in his helicopter, and all the other Saudi cousins
ordered targeting of the helicopter carrying Prince Mansour bin Mukran and 7 others, as it was believed that he was opposed to bin Salman's succession to the throne. According to reports, bin Mukran had recently sent a letter to some 1,000 princes urging them to step away from support for bin Salman's succession. He also pointed out that youth must take action. Sources claim that the attack sends a clear message to others within the royal family that bin Salman will stop at nothing to silence his critics and those who oppose him. On Sunday, Saudi Prince Mansour bin Mukran and 7 others were killed in a helicopter crash. The incident came less than a day after authorities arrested 11 princes and 40 former ministers for alleged involvement in corruption.
Are invited to I think it was Shakira or Ciara concert at the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh as guests of the king. He's throwing a little get together, and Shakira's going to be there. Ciara's going to be, I forget who it was. And everybody shows up, including Bakr bin Laden, the head of the bin Laden construction group, including Al-Walid bin Talal, the largest individual shareholder in Twitter at the time.
No one enters here now without official permission. The world's most talked about hotel. Riyadh's most palatial, most prestigious. Now a gilded prison. I'm taken in by Saudi officials, told don't film faces, don't record conversations. Here in the early hours of the morning, there's still people in the lobby drinking coffee, as you'd find in any of the five-star hotels here in the capital. Most of the people who have now been forced to stay here are keeping to themselves, trying to limit any further damage to their reputation. Their mobile phones have been taken away from them, but there is a hotline that's available to them. They can call their lawyers, family members, even leading members of the companies they're still trying to keep running. The world's most pampered prisoners have every comfort except freedom. The state is picking up this bill. As far as detention centers go, this one is beyond compare. Luxury swimming pool, restaurants, a gym, everything is glittering. There's even a bowling alley, but most prisoners just stay in their rooms. I'm taken to meet one suspect. He doesn't give me his name. Says he spends his time with his lawyer, focusing on his case. I'm told not to ask about it. But I get a briefing. Senior officials conducting this crackdown say it's not a formal investigation yet. They call it a friendly process, but it's clearly fraught. We're being told that when people were brought here around midnight on November the 4th, they were understandably angry. Some of them thought this would just be a show and it wouldn't last. And then when they realized they were here to stay, they were furious. Almost everyone here, 95% I was told, are willing to make a deal, to give back what are said to be substantial sums of money in order to get out of here. The Crown Prince, 32 years old, is taking on fellow princes, senior ministers, some of the biggest billionaires, tackling corruption, concentrating power. Weeks on, many are still asking questions about why this purge happened here and now, outside this gilded prison. It certainly has gone down well. Many Saudis welcome an end to the rampant corruption in the kingdom. But there are risks too. The ambitious crown prince risks creating enemies and uncertainty, which could endanger the very stability and reforms, his kingdom so badly needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was the Four Seasons right there too.
Right. So he, at the time, was equal partners with Bill Gates in the Four Seasons. They both had 45% of the company at the time.
Right. Okay. I remember that.
All right. So you have
Bill
the
Gates,
show.
That's weird that Bill Gates comes into that, but he never really got mentioned.
On purpose. You never hear the Four Seasons mentioned, right? It's all Mandalay Bay, Mandalay Bay. Nobody mentions the Four Seasons at all. Nobody even realizes it has anything to do with the story. So they kept Bill Gates out of this very nicely. So pretty crazy stuff there.
I found 911 calls where there was people staying on, if I remember right, it was like the floor right below the Four Seasons hotel, and they heard above them people crawling through ventilation shafts.
I remember that. I remember your report on that. Yeah, you did a lot of work on the 911 calls, and the show with Alex, the guy calls in, says it's ETS. 6 days later, we learn of the Night of the Long Sword. And that was, for me, that was it. It was like, this connects the dots. We now have a group that had means, motive, and opportunity. And that's when I started to put together my thesis videos that showed that it appeared that this group had means, motive, and opportunity. And that's when we located these training helicopters in Mesa, Arizona, about 275 miles away from Las Vegas. And there's it looks like there's an airport as the crow flies from Mesa to Vegas. There's an airport in a town called Kingman. It's nothing major, but it looks big enough that you could refuel a helicopter.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, it looks like it's good enough for that. And that's all you'd need to do. And so it appears they had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to pull this thing off. And nobody came forward with a better hypothesis that was equally as well documented. So this has sort of been standing as the main counter narrative until someone, and I keep saying it, half jokingly, but if someone came forward and said, no, El Chapo's got 15 helicopters right across the border.
Well, according to Laura Loomer, ISIS did it. And, it's just like, whatever.
Well, the thing with ISIS did it is it's not specific enough.
They claim responsibility. Well, who cares? I mean, so it's a CIA front group that claimed responsibility because you
can kind of debunk it better than that, rather than just saying who cares. Can ISIS fly? Have we seen evidence of ISIS demonstrating the ability to fly aircraft, and where?
Don't they operate out of caves somewhere?
It seems like their form of transportation of choice is the Toyota Hilux pickup truck with the 50 cal
gun in the back,
with the machine gun in the back, and that's what we see.
The worst truck to carry that.
Yeah, and seriously, have you seen an attack by ISIS where ISIS attacked by air? No, and so that's what rules out ISIS. ISIS can't fly. Neither can the Bloods or the Crips. Right? So this wasn't Bloods on Crips. They can't fly. ISIS can't fly. You know who can fly? The Saudi Arabian National Guard training in Mesa, Arizona on these helicopters. They can fly.
Well, and remember the reported Saudi involvement in 9/11.
Well, of course. And it's the same families. It's just 20 years later, not even 20 years later, 16 years later. It's the same families. It's the same people.
I wonder why all the alternative reporters covered up the helicopters, and if they talked about them, they talked about them in a manner that was not proper,
derisive. Yeah, I agree with you. And to me, this is sort of the biggest red flag in the alternative media world.
What I thought was weird, and obviously it's some kind of propped up operation, but you got Laura Loomer going around saying
it's ISIS.
Sheriff lied and it's ISIS. Well, we know the sheriff lied. Everyone knew the sheriff lied, and so she calls him out and does all, okay, great. Mm-hmm. But what about gunfire around Vegas? What about the helicopters and the radar data?
And it's not just Laura Loomer, though. Hang on.
It's so weird.
It's to me, it's everybody. It's Cernovich. It's Posobiec. Right. It's everybody in the alternative media world. It's Matt Couch. It's everybody
that made it that all of a sudden came in and just came out of a certain group or came, and magically.
Yeah, I never heard of these guys before.
These people when they're getting 4,000 and 12,000 retweets, and they came out of nowhere.
Never heard of them before. Never heard
their
of
websites. Look, here's a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Timcast says he makes over 10 million a year. It could be 20 million. We don't even know. He said, 8 figures or whatever, right? So it's like in the 10 million. So, now his website, I went and looked it up. It's not even as big as IntelliHub.com was back in its heyday.
They must be making a fortune from YouTube.
Over 10 million a year.
I mean, when Crowder, so where Steven Crowder doesn't see the helicopters? Steven Crowder wears a gun in the studio. He's a big shot, but he doesn't see the helicopters.
It's crazy.
And what about Project Veritas? They haven't seen any of my work?
That's only put there to act like something's going on, like Project Veritas is so bizarre to me. It's like all of these characters have the same earmarks.
That's exactly what I'm suggesting here is I don't understand. In fact, it's like you and Jason were like the only journalists who looked at the content and said, "Oh my God, it's a friggin' aerial attack."
I think there's only a couple real people in the whole world that do this. Kind of real investigations.
I think you're right. I think a lot of these people are working for not who you think they're working for. I mean, they may be getting a paycheck from a network, but that's not who they're ultimately answering to, it appears. And the thing that shocked me was that the alternative media had zero interest in this aerial attack. And again, I could be wrong. It may not be the group of people that I think it is, but it sure as hell are helicopters. I mean, there's no question that's what's happening. And the fact that all these alternative media people just turn their back on it or treat it as if it's equally important with some guy that didn't know what room he was staying in from Australia. It's like, who gives a shit? The guy doesn't know what room he's staying in. He's a dope. If you don't know what room you're staying in, that's not newsworthy. Move on. There's helicopters with commandos shooting people in the head. There's no gunfire coming from 32-135, which was your story.
Another thing.
Well, that was the story you broke. You broke it. You were listening to the body camera shit, and you said, "What the hell is this?" Mm-hmm. And then the New York Times. So, dude, this is huge. When the New York Times edited out that body cam footage that you reported, you broke the story when Brosnahan goes to the window and he pulls the curtain back and he goes, "It's not, Corey, it's not."
Go ahead, Todd.
You break that part of the story. But then there's a whole bunch of people who are saying, "Oh, no, that window's broken." And I'm like, what are you, out of your mind? That guy's not walking on glass. Right? He's not walking on glass.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? No, if you were walking on 1,200 shell casings, not to mention that would have set off heat detectors and smoke detectors, and anyone in that room would have been dead within like a couple minutes because gun smoke's like thick, dude, and 1,200 rounds.
Of course. So I did a video called "Where There's Gun Smoke, There's Fire," or something like that. And looking at the smoke alarms that do go off when they breach the room. So when Levi Hancock...
Only when they breach the room.
Yeah, so if the smoke alarms go off when he breaches the room, how do they not go off with 1,000 rounds? Are you kidding me?
How much of a cover-up there is, but also how ridiculous people are as investigators.
Exactly. I agree with you.
And also how they can't... Okay, so...
You heard that?
Yeah, they're blowing a room
nice. I'm on you. You guys are going to stay on this corner? We're going to move across.
That way.
On you.
Stand by.
We're trying to see what you see the flashlights?
All those new flashing lights are the fire alarm now because they just breached. Stand by.
We're trying to see what you see the flashlights?
All those new flashing lights are the fire alarm now because they just breached.
No one's going to give you affirmation or affirm. Like, you're not going to wait for the mainstream media to tell you that, the heat detectors didn't go off and the smoke detectors didn't go off until they breached the...
Right. You got to do the work.
Like, no one's going to tell you that. No one's going to confirm that.
You're right.
You got to go in and look or just,
it's one of the weird things. I find it weird. I'm sure you do too. I know you spent hours and hours listening to those damn 911 calls. I know you did. And I spent hours watching these damn body cam things looking for helicopters, right? Every body cam clip, I'm looking for more helicopters, right? And I'm looking for shooters on the ground too, but I'm using confirmation bias. I'm looking to confirm my thesis. And sure enough, I find helicopters on almost every one that I'm looking at.
Not to mention 911 calls. People were reporting shooters hanging out of helicopters.
Exactly. So we're triangulating.
They engaged them air to air with a 50 caliber. Like who goes up in a SWAT helicopter with like a 50 caliber airborne? Unless you're
that's a good point. And all right, so that's a good point. I never really explored that, but let's talk about that for a second. One of the scenes that we did see on film was the police helicopter. I'm not sure if it's N911WY. That's one of the helicopters. One of them lands at the Harley Davidson dealership.
Yeah, I think it was that one.
When it lands at the Harley Davidson dealership, you see one of the SWAT guys loading up an FN Mini-Me. He's loading up a full machine gun with a belt feed. And you see him close the top. I know what the gun looks like, and he closes the top of the gun. I'll pull up the footage and I'll play it for the audience so they can see what I'm talking about. So to your point, what the hell are these guys doing with machine guns going airborne? What the hell's that about? Because they sure don't then head to room 32135 and position themselves outside the room. That's not what they do. They head over to the airport. They go flying around.
Military Clarence off the airport situation. Military Clarence off the airport situation. Military Clarence off the airport situation. And just be advised, there's an active shooter on the airport. This is a blanket broadcast for all aircraft. Just a heads up. Keep your speed up to the ramp and
Before we go to the break, if people want to support your journalism, you've been cut off by banks, you've been cut off by everybody. I mean, they're trying to take away your ability. They
literally have me to where I'm almost homeless and foodless and everything. Like,
all right, so that's why we're doing this.
But also I'm going full time. I'm making a full time push right now, so I have no other income.
Right. So
I'm like jumping at the same time because it's just a natural reaction for me because they're destroying humanity, with everything they're doing.
Whether you appreciate her reporting or not, I know they did the same thing to Laura Loomer. They cut off her internet or banking, stuff like that. They're doing it to you. They're going to do it to me if they can figure out who I am. They'll do it to Jason. They're going to do it to anybody who's bringing counter-narrative research that's real journalism. In other words, you sit down and do the work. You actually listen to hours of 911 stuff to come up with one recording, one 30-second recording that you spend 4 to 5 hours to find. And that's the work that I know that you do. And so if people want to support your work through PayPal, is there a way that they can send you $5, $10, $20 on PayPal to help support your work?
There is. You can go to any of my YouTube videos at the Shepard Ambellas channel, and the links are in the description. You can go to atn.live, which is the Ambellas Talk Network. The URL is atn.live, and there's a pledge button.
That's great.
So you can go there.
I'll put the link up
in
on
my
the screen.
YouTube descriptions and stuff. I have Bitcoin addresses, stuff like that. You know, a couple different things, but I'm down to where I need all the support I can get, because I need to get through like about 90 days. And then I feel like sponsor stuff will be like sustainable and stuff. But if I don't make it through this point, then we're not even going to have a journalist doing this, because I'll be totally out of the game. So I really
we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to.
It's like I need people to come through like extra hard right now.
That's why we're here.
If they know who I am or what I've done. I'm going to offer, you know, anyone that comes through, they can DM me. I'll send them my film on DVD for free. Shackled to Silence. You're in it. My latest CD, Gang Stalker 2.0.
All right, let's get some support and show some love to Shepard. Consider this kind of like a telethon, just without Jerry Lewis and all the sad, all the sad stuff. So let's see if we can raise a couple $1,000 for Shep. And every $5, $10 helps. You guys would be surprised how it adds up when a couple hundred of you chip in $10, $20. It's a big deal. So thank you guys for the support.
Hi, my name is Shepard Ambellas. I'm the founder of the website IntelliHub.com. I'm also a radio talk show host and a filmmaker. And oh, did I say I make beats? So filming the documentary was a crazy experience within itself, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad we learned what we learned. Jason Goodman with Crowdsource the Truth, my co-host Bethany Adani, Dr. Jerome Corsi. Making the film in general was a wonderful experience, but in other ways it was a living hell. I mean, myself and Aaron Cole were literally working 16 and 18-hour days, sometimes even more, to go to all these different interviews that we had to get done with all these experts, doctors, researchers, all these different people, plus end up in Louisville for the second day of the Breonna Taylor protest. So it was a whole power-packed trip wrapped up into an investigation that just never ended, and it lasted for about 3 weeks. It definitely felt like some type of concerted operation, probably law enforcement, probably FBI. He singled me out and only me out. He knew we were in IntelliHub. He knew we had press credentials.
You want to be out here?
Yeah.
You want to be out here?
Yeah.
You want to go be out here?
Yeah.
I can get you taken out of here.
Who are you?
I can get you taken out of here if
Who
you want
are
to.
you?
So get on back on over there.
Don't
Go.
touch me.
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
Who are you?
Go.
What's your name?
Go.
What's your name?
Get the fuck away. That's who I am.
The reason that operative, I call him an operative, wanted us to leave is because we were streaming live. We were the only reporters streaming live for IntelliHub.com and the Jason Goodman Crowdsource the Truth channel on YouTube. And it was a live report.
They shot first.
Yeah, right. What do you make of all this? Do you think this is going to last longer, or are they like?
I think it's gonna be a long time because, for one, y'all see those weak ass charges.
Yeah.
He ain't even say nothing about Breonna Taylor. Didn't even mention her name.
Yeah.
How y'all doing? I didn't really mean it, but yeah.
She meant it.
I didn't.
And you're very.
Here's the National Guard. Are you National Guard? Yeah. One thing is for sure, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, these groups are working in conjunction not only with people like George Soros, possibly factions of the older Obama administration and possibly even CIA and FBI factions. But we found out they are likely working with law enforcement. We witnessed a powwow, if you will. They really wanted us out there. They could not have that live stream going. And one guy was basically threatening me, and it turned into me saying something like, or
what? Oh, there's a lot of motherfuckers here. You familiar with the phrase fuck around and find out?
Well, meeting Jason Goodman was an experience within itself. He was pretty much like I thought he would be. I've known him for about 4 years now, something like that. And he's a great guy. I really like how he does his investigations. He's walking around New York. He's checking things out. But
hi, my name is Jason Goodman. I am the founder and host of Crowdsource the Truth. And welcome to New York City in the era of COVID-19.
Further ado, here is your host, Shepard Ambellas.
All right, it's Thursday, September 24th. I hope everyone's has had a good week so far. But today we're going to have a special guest with us. Investigative journalist John Cullen is joining us, and we're going to be talking all about these near-Earth objects, COVID, and what's currently going on with the whole state of the world.
Well, I mean, the story about COVID is so complex, and in a big way because of you. I mean, you broke probably the biggest aspect of the story that most of the public is not aware of. This is John Cullen, and I'm back with Shepard Ambellas. How you doing, Shep?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you putting me on the show.
It's a pleasure to have you. You put me on the map, so when you put the mapping guy on the map, that's a big deal, and it's great to have you here.
Put him on the map.
Exactly. So it's great to have you here. So for those of you that are able to and have the means to support Shepard's journalism, it's really important, and I'm grateful for it. Shep's grateful for it. I wanted to talk a bit about something that happened in, I guess it was April of 2020. And you came on the show as a guest with Jason Goodman and I. Jason and I do a show every Friday. And you came on as a guest, and you had just done the Shackled to Silence, or you were, let's see, was Shackled to Silence? No, you hadn't done Shackled to Silence yet, right? It was April 2020.
Right.
So you hadn't.
It was before that.
That's right. So you hadn't filmed it yet. And you came on the show, and at the time, there was a whole bunch of hullabaloo about the election that had taken place back in November. And I guess they were still counting votes, or there was something going on where Arizona was recounting the votes at the stadium, and somebody rented out the whole damn stadium to recount the votes, and that was going on. And so I had a bunch of flight radar data that I was going to show you guys of what was going on near the stadium where they were recounting the votes, because it looked creepy to me. It looked weird. Mm-hmm. So I come to the show with all this flight radar stuff. I'm all excited to share it with you. And you came on the show and you're like, no, guys. What you see happening is not what's happening. And there's something else happening. And we were, I'm looking at Jason. Jason's looking at me on the show, in the camera. And we're like, what the hell is Shep talking about? What's he saying? What? And then you started to tell us about the military and the National Guard getting called up. And you were the first one in the country to have any awareness of this and report this. I mean, no one was talking about this to the extent that when we heard it, we were like, what? Come on, Shep. What the hell are you talking about? Come on. And sure enough, Donald Trump, in an interview with Maria Bartiromo, like 90 days after you came on the show, tells everybody this was the largest call-up of the National Guard.
That's right.
Since D-Day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm sitting there going, if Shepard Ambellas isn't vindicated by what Donald Trump just said, I mean, this goes back to your early reporting on the show. You said, guys, people were sending me footage of like convoys of military trucks. Do you remember this? Tell everybody how that came to be, because when you first heard it, you must have been going, what the hell is this? What's going on here?
Well, at IntelliHub News, especially back in the day, we would really heavily monitor any kind of troop or military movements. And it's usually always a typical movement, but we would track it all. So through that, I have lots of contacts, people within the military, and also I've learned to recognize certain signs. And I was just seeing an unprecedented amount of movement, all going in the wrong way. It was all going just around the country in like the most bizarre way. And it looked like they were staging for a disaster or something, you know? And I think it was Newsweek came out later and they said, look, the White House went into continuity of government over the invisible enemy. General O'Shaughnessy, the head of NORAD at the time, bunkered himself in, and they buttoned up Cheyenne Mountain, and they've activated the Jeep plan, and they anticipate possibly having to dig the president out of rubble if the White House is ruined. They had all these radar battery, old school radars around.
Let me show the audience the article in Newsweek. I'm going to pull it up on the screen so that they know what you're talking about. There was so Newsweek publishes an article about all this continuity of government activity going on, and how FEMA and NORAD are being kind of officially put in charge because of this national emergency in all 50 states. Mm-hmm. And the thing that was so odd was that there weren't 200 people dead from COVID. And at the time that the president's declaring all this, like 150 people were dying, 150 people were dying a day or a week from fentanyl. And we've got less than 200 dead from COVID. But from my perspective, as this is happening, there's not 10 people dead in Shanghai. There's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong. There's not 10 people dead in Beijing.
Right.
So why are we declaring a national emergency? So you came on, you tell us this, and then at the same time this is happening, there was a comet called C-19 Atlas. Mm-hmm. And C-19 Atlas was on its way in towards the solar system. And as it was coming into the solar system, it was burning blue, which I guess means
bizarre.
Yeah, but I think it means it has a lot of copper. I think it has a high copper content or something like that. So it was burning blue. And sure enough, the legendary stuff of this blue Kachina, the blue star, and a blue planet that would return. There's like written stuff from 4,000, 5,000 years ago about this. And sure enough, the comet's on a 4,000 year, 4,500 year periodicity as it goes around the solar system, except it breaks up. It breaks up as it passes between Mercury and the sun, doesn't come near Earth, but it was enough to get me to go look at the JPL stuff to find what rock it really was. So that's the rock the news was talking about. And it turned out, so this was kind of weird. There was story after story after story about close calls with meteors.
The city of Chicago is transforming a convention center into a makeshift healthcare facility over concerns of a surge in infections. The first 500 beds were unveiled on Friday in the hall that has been home to the Chicago Auto Show. The center is expected to house a further 2,500 beds, and patients with mild symptoms will be transferred there from existing hospitals. According to the Johns Hopkins University tracker, there are now over 9,000 confirmed cases in the state of Illinois, where Chicago is located.
But what we didn't know when you came on the show, and I think it was April 4th, 4th or 5th, you came on the show, and what we didn't know is that 1 week earlier, an asteroid actually hit the Earth. And
What's weird about this, though, I think we did know, or I was saying something about trauma surgeons, though. Was I saying something
you said
about
30,000. I
deployed?
remember you said 30,000 trauma surgeons are being called up. That turned out to be true.
And I said that they wouldn't deploy them unless they were needed for trauma.
You were correct. So here's what ends up happening. So this is why I think this is the biggest story of the 21st century.
They wanted 70,000 trauma surgeons.
It's insane.
They thought it was going to be so bad that they wanted 70,000 trauma surgeons.
Well, we're going to get to see this movie again, I'm afraid, in 6 years. So here's what happens and why I think it's the biggest story of the 21st century. You come on the show, you report this, I go to the JPL site, I'm able to confirm what's happening. I then share that information with Laura Ingraham privately. All right, so I had connected with Laura Ingraham from Fox News through somebody who was watching my videos, knew her, and said, I think she needs to see your stuff. So we were talking about COVID. And then you came on the show, you dropped this bombshell, and by the time I find the NASA stuff and whatever, and I share it with Laura, it was like 4 weeks later. So
Yeah.
I was looking into the asteroid stuff from the time you came on the show until I guess it was like April 28th. And that's when I filmed this simulation, but it's not a simulation. It's like it's a 3D representation of what happened, which was about 30 to 40 asteroids were converging on the Earth on or about April 26th of 2020. Now, the thing that's remarkable about it is that these weren't a million miles away. These were asteroids that are less than 1 LD. 1 LD is a lunar distance, which is 250,000 miles. So asteroids that are less than 1 LD are closer than the moon. Those are the ones I tend to worry about.
Exactly.
And in fact, it's the ones that are less than half of an LD. So if it's less than half the distance to the moon, now it gets my attention. Right? If it's 200,000 miles, right? But when it's 8,000 miles, 4,000 miles, 6,000 miles, those are close. Well, it turns out March 28th of 2020, a meteor hits the Earth in rural Nigeria.
ó lè ṣe pipeline. gbogbo àkúrẹ́ lájú pàtó.
ṣé kó wọ́n lè gbẹ́ títì lélẹ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ yóò yé mi.
ṣé wọ́n gbẹ́ títì báyìí ni wọ́n gbẹ́ títì báyìí.
ó yé mi ni ó ṣe pé nǹkan lè jẹ́ àkọ́kọ́ jù lélẹ̀ mú láì lọ ọdún láì lọ oṣù ní 30 minutes.
ó lè ṣe pipeline. gbogbo àkúrẹ́ lájú pàtó. ó lè ṣe ṣọ́ọ̀ṣì. ó sọ fún ara ẹ̀ balẹ̀. Somebody here.
Then they try to cover it up.
They try and cover it up. It's nominally covered locally. And none of the national news services, NASA, Reuters, nobody covers this. Now, why is that? Because they're anticipating it's the first of many.
Right.
This is March 28th. And another phenomenon happens. The preview, the trailer for the movie Greenland gets ghosted from the internet.
Yeah.
Like it didn't exist. But they just put the trailer out a week earlier.
Is this Clark, this interstellar comet? Yeah, big news.
I don't see Clark.
Oh, maybe he's still sleeping.
Dad.
Some of Clark's larger fragments are now expected to enter our atmosphere.
That's right, and others are just...
What are they saying?
More of the same.
I bet it's gonna make a heck of a show.
Whoa. Where are they going?
I don't know. One of the first chunks is about to hit.
Hit?
Only part of it. It's going in the ocean.
Would you look at that?
Wait, where's the explosion?
We now are getting word that the fragment has hit Central Florida.
Oh my God.
Wait, are some more pieces gonna hit?
Come on, let's go.
But the sky's on fire.
2 days. They got it all wrong. There's a ton of fragments. Planet killers.
Space agencies are predicting an extinction level event.
We're gonna be together, all right, kiddo? We're just trying to get to safety.
They've been tracking the military flights to bunkers in Greenland.
It's our only chance.
Move back! Perimeter breach. Perimeter breach. Runway 33. Drop your weapons now!
Allison! Nathan! Allison!
Where's Dad?
We'll find him. It's okay. Clark's largest fragment will hit in less than 24 hours.
I swear, I'm gonna get my family into that bunker. I know you will, son.
If you are hearing this broadcast, seek shelter immediately.
What is it? What's going on?
If you are hearing this broadcast, seek shelter
John, go!
Hang on, Nathan.
Seek shelter immediately. Seek shelter immediately.
That's that movie with all these asteroids coming in and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And it was basically the whole scenario we were talking about.
Exactly. And they pull the trailer off the internet as if it didn't exist. And if you published anything that had it in there, it was given a strike or taken down. It's like, well, what the hell is that all about? Why would you do that? That's odd. It must have been a coincidence. So I find all this JPL stuff. I end up sharing it with Laura Ingraham on a weekend morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday. I forget which day it was. And it's over Skype, no cameras, just talking over Skype. But I sent her the video In fact, you have it, right? I sent it to you. You have it. I sent it to you via Skype. You should have the asteroid video, right? You have a copy of it. Yeah. So I send that to her. She's watching the video. And we're talking, right? So we're talking via Skype. She's watching it. I'm watching it. And she's like, what is this? And I said, those are meteors converging on the Earth. And she's like, when? And I'm like, yesterday. You're okay today, but you almost didn't wake up today, Cookie, you know?
Yeah.
There almost was no April 28th of 2020.
Right.
And this cover-up. So let's go back to the field hospitals. Field hospitals were deployed in every major city in the United States.
250 hospital cots are being prepared inside the Santa Clara Convention Center's main hall. It's all part of Santa Clara County's plan to handle an expected onslaught of patients suffering from COVID-19.
Well, the state is ready, especially this field hospital behind me here at the Boston Convention Center, as you mentioned, Kate, Boston Hope. Now, this field hospital will serve as a relief valve to the healthcare system so it doesn't get clogged and area hospitals can focus on providing life-saving treatment for those who need it. The governor toured the new Boston Hope Medical Center, a 1,000-bed field hospital at the site of the convention center. It's already being used. Baker was joined by the Army's top general, James McConville, a Massachusetts native. Military medical personnel are working side by side here with doctors and nurses caring for patients.
We are in a war against an invisible enemy.
We had a lot of rumors about was the military taking over Seattle? The answer is no. They're here to help.
300 soldiers will soon transform the CenturyLink Event Center into a fully functioning hospital with nearly 150 beds, surgeons, even a pharmacy on site.
The field hospital would be used to treat people who don't have the virus if the hospitals are overrun. The Army Corps said the hospital on this site would be similar to the one at the Javits Center in New York City. This would be the second field hospital in South Florida. The state already built one on the youth fairgrounds in West Dade. That site we've reported.
Every major city. Every major city. So if you think there wasn't one in Boise, Idaho, there was one in Boise, Idaho. If you think there wasn't one in Rhode Island, there were 4 of them in Rhode Island. Okay? Right. They were everywhere. The largest call-up of the National Guard since D-Day, and now here comes the punchline. They stood for 11 days.
Yeah.
11 days.
Right. Putting it all within that time period.
And then on May 1st, they start putting them away. And we're looking at the asteroid animation, and the asteroid animation looks like everything's okay April 28th, 29th. Mm-hmm. April 28th, 29th, everything's okay, and they put the field hospitals away on May 1st? Holy mackerel. I guess Trump didn't want to pay for an extra hour.
Right.
You know, he's like, well, they're gone, put them away, get rid of them. It didn't make a whole lot of, why would you go through all this effort to build the field hospitals and only have them standing for 11 days?
Also, that's a perfect drill, and it gives them a how to assemble that and how long it's going to take idea, and getting the logistics of getting those deployed. And they probably left that equipment in every city, and it'd be faster next time and such and such.
Interesting. Well,
did you know, like, this week there was at least one impact and maybe 2, and there was a bunch of asteroids going everywhere. One almost like actually hit a whole city or something. I mean, it's crazy out there.
Yeah. When we go through these meteor showers, so there are certain times a year when there's the Orionids, right? So there's different periods of the year when we know we are traversing through meteor-rich parts of space, because we keep going around, the same thing again and again. So they tell you, you expect meteor showers this week. And so there's certain times a year when you get to see quite a few of them. And so this was the weird thing, was that they were reporting on all these near misses, and they don't report on the one that hits.
It's
How does
crazy.
yeah, why would you not report on one that hits? That's weird.
Well,
unless you're trying to
yeah.
hide something, right? So the field hospitals are only standing for 11 days, and you're told don't bring your COVID patients here. These are not for COVID. This is in case the hospitals are overrun. These are for hospital overflow. And then, as you said, they brought up 30,000 trauma surgeons, and each one of the field hospitals had an incident command center for a respiratory infection? For a respiratory infection that hadn't killed 10 people in Shanghai?
Right.
Hadn't killed 10 people in Hong Kong?
I interviewed doctors that said, if they got trauma surgeons, then something's up. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to deploy those for a virus.
And now you also notice that these hospitals, so for example, NHS Nightingale in the UK on the Thames, 4,000 beds.
Mm-hmm.
They put it away in May. It didn't stand for 6 weeks. They built them in Turkey. They built them in Croatia. They built them in South Africa. They built field hospitals all over the world, and they had nothing to do with COVID. They were put away after less than 2 weeks in the United States, 11 days. Can you imagine all that work to put them up, and 11 days later put them away? You don't want to just leave them up here for 90 days or so, see how this thing kind of plays out? Yeah, 11 days, huh?
It's weird.
It wasn't,
but it's all fitting. It all matches, and this whole scenario is still playing out to this day.
Indeed.
And everything's still ramping in. I mean, we got the Earth's core. They're saying it's stopping.
That's another wild story. And that's a story
that to me is an effect of magnetic braking. That to me lets me know this Nemesis system's getting close.
The funny thing is that's the type of story that you would have reported and broken way before the mainstream media. And naysayers would have said, oh, there goes Shep again with another one of his crazy stories that the core of the earth is reversing.
Well,
this is like a huge story now.
Because we were talking about, in my film, Shackled to Silence, we were talking about magnetic braking with Marshall Masters and how it, when a big perturber like that comes in the system, it basically locks in magnetically.
I don't know what the hell happens. All I know is that if the core of the Earth has stopped spinning or has countered direction, again, it seems like a rather significant event.
Well,
like the helicopters in Vegas, right? Like the helicopters in Vegas. It's like, how do you then go to, a story? In other words, nobody has really significantly explained. So wait. The core of the Earth has stopped spinning, and
they say it's a regular thing that happens every 70 years, which is where the disinfo comes in.
Yeah,
this
I'm
only
not buying
happens
that.
every 3,600. People need to go to the Adam and Eve story, the CIA's Adam and Eve story, where they got a hold of this Adam and Eve story that this dude did a scenario on exactly what would happen when the pole shift happens, and essentially it's because of the passing of the Nemesis system, but with Planet X and whatnot, which happens in a cyclical fashion. But they documented that this happens in a cycle, because they drilled down into the earth, with like the Kola borehole and stuff like that. They've taken core samples though, and they've seen that when there is a pole shift, there's a big mud floods and sloshing and stuff like that on the planet, and that all happens within just a several hour period to a 1 day period, and it's so abrupt and hits us so hard that there's no warning, basically.
Well, again, as I said, if the core of the Earth has stopped spinning or changes direction, you'd think you'd have a geologist on just about every night with the latest update as to what this could mean.
It's weird. It's bizarre. They're just like hiding it and then giving us like blanket story.
I saw a report just a couple days ago that a piece of the sun, they have the sun. Yeah,
and that's no
a
big
flare.
deal. Now, the thing is, in my opinion, the only thing that causes that is what I'm talking about too. This nemesis passing too close, the sun's nemesis.
So one of the things that you shared, one of the things you shared with me that I didn't know is that most star systems in the Milky Way, most stars are binary stars. And I didn't know that. And it's true. Most of the stars in the Milky Way galaxy are binary stars. They have a companion. And ours
supposedly doesn't
right.
from what they tell us.
Right.
But the theory is that second sun is burnt out.
Could be a black hole,
a brown dwarf star, and there's still planets that orbit that, and it makes it very hard to detect. And this is what NASA started detecting and admitted in like 1982, 83, and then it gets into them developing the FEMA.
Well, let me tell you something funny.
And for what they activated during the Stafford Act and COG and what Donald Trump ushered in the 50 governors, and then we see all this ramp up, and now there's asteroids every day and UFOs all over, and it looked like the ISS fell out of the sky on a balloon.
Well, here's a piece of the story I think you might find interesting. There's a gentleman I just did an interview with about a week or two ago, named Spike, who uses a firewall program called PeerBlock that tells you who's trying to ping your machine for cookies and what have you, right? So it not only is it a firewall, but it rats out who it is that's trying to get in. Well, he started to do some searches on Planet X. And he said his firewall went bonkers. And all of a sudden, NASA and everybody was pinging him. And he was like, what the hell? Why are they so interested in me? Because I'm poking around Planet X. Did I just hit a nerve or something? Why are they pinging me? So that was the initiation of what ended up happening with him, where he ends up running PeerBlock and does a query against I am John Cullen and gets 400 pages of IP addresses pinging him. And he was freaking out. And he said, I thought it would be 400 pages on Shepard Ambellas or, Laura Loomer or, somebody who's kind of known as, a bit of a troublemaker or whatever, right? Somebody who's known as stirring the pot. And he said, but I ran Laura Loomer and I ran Shepard Ambellas, and yeah, there were IP addresses tracked. But he said, oh my God, he said, man, when I ran I am John Cullen, he said, I thought a black car was going to pull up outside my house. He said, it was freaky, man. He said, 400 pages. He's like, what did you do? What did you do? And I was like, I might have figured out this Vegas thing.
Yeah.
Might be a little too close for comfort.
That's crazy.
So, but it started with him poking around Planet X, and he said, and all of a sudden, like NASA was pinging him, and he's like, "What the? Why would you guys give a hoot that I'm poking around Planet X?" He said it was wild.
most recently, some of my reporting's real divisive with NASA, and I've even debated astronauts on Clubhouse. I've debated the NASA press lady, everything, and I don't think they ever held a candle to me on some of that stuff. But interestingly enough, they sent a whole group after me that is it's part of like targeting operations, but they have private companies that do this, and they have a 3,800 person company that they assigned to me. They probably assigned about 20 of the operatives from it, and I tracked them back and doxed a few, and so
It's
they're
a
running like
dangerous
draining
game.
operations.
It's a dangerous
that
game.
take up my time, and
because again, you shared your name, and you're easy to find. Again, you stand out in the crowd in Beijing, and and it's one of the reasons why I opted to go incognito. I was afraid of all this. I was afraid that's what was going to happen, and I knew that I'd be sacrificing credibility by going incognito with the whole costume and thing.
Yeah.
But I figured, you know what? If I don't voice my opinion too much, I keep my mouth shut, and I just show evidence, the whole difference doesn't look like what the, if I'm in costume, right? It's like, I got the goods. I got the goods, right? And so at the end of the day, as weird as it may look, now everybody's experiencing it. Doctors, they're going after doctors' license. Imagine you're a physician and you're going to get told by the state you can't practice what? You're going to go work at Starbucks now? I mean,
crazy.
A lot of doctors are freaking out over this stuff because they're getting attacked. So it started with you, right? I kind of stayed in the shadows enough to not have to deal with these people. But Jason has been up to his eyeballs in these legal things for
That's
years.
Targeting. Yeah, draining and targeting.
Exactly. So they did that to him. They did, again, whether or not you appreciate her reporting or not, they did the same thing to Laura Loomer, right?
Yeah.
High profile. They shut off like her cable. Like she couldn't have internet in her house. The internet company said, we don't like you.
That's crazy.
Your social score with us is low. You can't have internet. It's like, what the, come on. So I think things have gotten a little bit crazy, but I wanted to definitely get a chance to share that aspect of the story with the audience with these asteroids, because to me, the fact that the field hospitals had nothing to do with COVID and were for a potential extinction level event, and nobody knows this, and that you effectively came on and broke this story back in April of 2020. To me, this is the biggest. It's the biggest story of the 21st century to me.
Yeah, I think so too. There was that comet Elenin back in the day, and people thought it was like a drill that stood for extinction level event. Nemesis is near, and it's some type of military code or something is what we came up with back in the day. And around the same time, they tested the emergency alert system in full continuity for the first time. So I believe that to be part of this.
Well, again, the Newsweek article kind of gave up the ghost. And oftentimes you can find journalism like that it can become kind of a big piece of the story. And you look at this Newsweek story, and you're like, this sure does seem like overkill for a respiratory infection.
Yeah.
It really does. And I said that to Laura Ingraham. I said, doesn't this seem like, she knew at the time there weren't 10 dead in Shanghai, Beijing, or Hong Kong. I kept pounding her on the head with that. So I was like, how does this make any sense? There's nobody at the time. There was like nobody dead in Vietnam. There was nobody dead in Laos. Nobody dead in Cambodia. And you're putting
the whole world's doing the same
and everybody's
thing,
building field hospitals. Yeah, it's like, well, but there's nobody dead in Hong Kong. 4 people dead in Hong Kong, and you're building why are you building a field hospital? You broke the story, my friend. You are the one. You broke the story. People ridiculed you for it, and they shut off your ability to earn. And you're the guy who broke the biggest story of the 21st century, in my opinion.
They can still grab my film, Shackled to Silence. The link will be in the description. And you're in it. Jason Goodman's in it. It's a great film, and it stands to this day and lays out everything that is happened and will come.
Indeed. And again, I'm in awe of the reporting that you've done, the work that you put into the Vegas shooting, the hours and hours that you spent studying the damn 911 calls and those reports and stuff. And then to bring this story to light. And it was such a shocking story. And the fact that you just came out and just said, no, this is what's going on, guys. I'm certain this is what's going on. And that was all I needed to hear. I trust you enough that I went to JPL, and sure enough, man, you were on it. It was unreal. I couldn't believe what I saw. I couldn't believe it. And so for that, I tip my hat to you, my friend.
Thank you.
And to the audience, let's do what we can to support Shepard's journalism. This can't stop. The man is too important. He put my work on the map, and for that, I'm forever in your debt. And
I appreciate you having me on the show too. Obviously, I'm trying to raise some money because I'm at literally a 0 level. But I'm doing this full time, and I'm just going to have faith in God and move forward. So like today, I have $0, but I'm just going to do it and move forward.
All right, well, let's talk about, let's promote the channel. You've got the tell everybody about the Ambellas network. What do we have there?
The Ambellas Talk Network. It's atn.live is the URL. Go to atn.live, Ambellas Talk Network, and you can catch all the shows on there. The Rained Out Rantcast, the Cole Report, Shepard Ambellas Show, and the Outcast. And those archived to Apple Podcasts and all the platforms. And the shows are now all on video on all the platforms as well, and on atn.live. So we're streaming out to like 11 platforms or something right now, and we're adding more.
And if you guys can contribute, we've got a PayPal link that you can use if you want to just PayPal $10, $20 over.
Film, the Bitcoin address. You know, if you got a few Bitcoin laying around, I'll take that.
And Shackled to Silence is awesome. It is a really well done film. And I know you and Aaron worked really hard on that. And it shows. It shows.
I have 1,000 hours into the film. Click the link in the description for the film.
All right.
And I'll send it out.
All right. We'll put the links up here on the screen. Shep, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. And you're welcome back anytime. I think we're going to get a lot of love coming your way. So sit back, relax, and we got this. We got this, my friend.
Thanks. I appreciate it, John.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Talk to you soon.
Great work, brother.
All right.
Keep it up.
The next leg of our investigation took us to Houston, Texas, where we met up with Dr. Richard Urso, who's an outspoken doctor on the COVID. He's met with Vice President Mike Pence recently and sat rather close to him. And he has a lot of insight into what's been going on in the medical field with COVID, how he's been treating these patients and what he's found out, and what he told us absolutely blew my mind.
I'm Dr. Richard Urso. I'm a practicing ophthalmologist in Houston, Texas. I have a background in drug development and was able to design and patent and get through the FDA a drug for wound healing. Back in early February, I realized that this COVID-19 was going to affect the United States. And I started looking at some drug targets. And eventually, it didn't take too long to figure out that there was quite a few drug targets that made a lot of sense for this virus. this has to be very similar in some ways to the other coronaviruses. This is why I came up with the drug targets. And when I was told to go home, I basically decided that wasn't going to work. I wrote letters. I was again told really strongly to stop exploring this. And I said, I don't understand this. We've never done this before. We've never told doctors to go home. We've never told patients to go home and isolate and wait till you're almost half dead before you come to the hospital. It made no sense. And I basically decided to go on social media and say that this was wrong, that we had drugs that looked like they were great targets for this virus, and I felt like we had to let the world know. So I put out a video. It got about 100,000 views in about 2 hours, and I thought, wow, that's really taken off. And sure enough, within a short period of time, 2 days later, I got a letter from the board telling me that I was in trouble for talking about hydroxychloroquine and how it works.
The doctor actually thinks this COVID case map is inaccurate. He doesn't know how they're getting their information. He doesn't know what's going on.
So what's interesting, the Hopkins guys, they first started their analysis based on news reports. All of a sudden now they've got this artificial intelligence uploading data from who knows where. I don't know where they're uploading data from. Where's the paper trail? Where's the IRB approvals? The de-identified data from where? From what hospitals? Where's the ethics reviews? Where's the IRB? Where's all the things that go along with getting data from hospitals on patient HIPAA compliance? All that stuff has to be. It's a huge paper trail, and it's really hard to institute it. So I don't know where I don't believe their data any more than Surgisphere, and I'm gonna go there for a second. Harvard, as anybody on this film has heard of, actually had a completely fake data set that they did for the New England Journal of Medicine and Lancet, and it's two cardiovascular guys that published the data. They created a data collection called Surgisphere, which is basically completely fabricated everything. 93,000 patients, 671 hospitals, 6 continents. And it turned out that we basically said there's no way they can do that. There's no way. And I feel the same way with what's going on with Hopkins. There's no transparency. There's no way they can collect all this data in real time. Nobody uploads their data. That's not how hospitals work. It's not like we have one system. We're all on iPhone systems, or we're all on Microsoft Word. No, it's not how hospitals are. My own hospital system the billing doesn't talk to the clinical. So it's really hard to get data to talk. Every system's different. There's no way they can collect all this data without huge paper trail and only 6 people. No, it's impossible.
It's the same kind of story that seems to come down from long ago. 2 friends having coffee together when something flies by their window. It might be out on that lawn, which is wide at least half of the playing field. Because there's no explaining what your imagination can make you see and feel. Your body means nothing, you're hypnotized. Now it's not a meaningless question to ask if they've been and gone. I remember a talk about North Carolina in a strange, strange pond. You see, the sides were like glass in the thick of a forest without a road. And if any man's hand ever made that land, but I think it would have showed. And that's why it seemed like